Hi, welcome to Every Single Journey, a family life original podcast for singles. My name is Becky. I'm a single girl in my 30s who is passionately pursuing this life God has given me. Join me as we navigate the season of singleness together. Joining us on episode 4 are my two co-hosts and co-workers, Tately.
Hey, I'm happy to be back.
And Dylan.
Hello there.
Today, we're going to look at bucket lists. Now, I'm not talking about your typical bucket list of things to do before you die. I'm talking about a marriage bucket list. You know, the things you're waiting to do until you get married, like going to the movies, spending a day at the lake, exploring a city and seeing all the sights. The list could go on and on. But is this the list we really should be creating? Or is it hindering us from living the life to the full, here and now? What are your guys' thoughts?
I know that you gave examples already, but when you're thinking of waiting to do things before or waiting until marriage to do things, are you more so talking about car ownership or home ownership or things like that, like big life choices? Are you mostly looking for like living the day-to-day, kind of like looking for activities to do?
I personally think both because I've had experience contemplating both. Personally, I would love to own my own home someday. And I've had the very real hard conversation with myself of, well, should I really be doing that while I'm single? What if I buy a house and get all settled in? I meet somebody, we get married, and then I learned I've bought the house in the wrong town, or it's not big enough, or it's like there's something wrong with it, or like all of the things that could go wrong. Or on the flip side of that, can I take care of it myself? What happens if my furnace goes? I don't have a handyman to go take care of it. I certainly don't have that knowledge. So I've had that experience, but I've also had the experience of like, oh, like I put on this outfit. I feel really pretty right now. I want to go on a date, but I can't because I don't have a boyfriend. So I'm not going to wear the pretty dress out. I'm not going to go out to dinner. And just challenging myself of, well, why couldn't I go out to dinner? Why couldn't I take myself and go out to dinner? Or why couldn't I invite a bunch of my female friends or a mixed group of friends to go to dinner with me and we all can dress nice? Like, am I letting myself be defeated or not do the desires that I have just because I don't have a spouse? Or am I, like the fear of the unknown, like with buying the house, there's so many unknowns to that. Am I letting that fear overtake me because I don't have a spouse? And that's my excuse for not doing it. And then I just keep going in the same pattern. I never wear the fancy dress or the pretty dress, and I never go out to dinner because I don't have a spouse, but there's lots of other opportunities for me to do that. So I'm hoping that answers your question, Dylan.
Yeah, it definitely does. I'm just trying to think because there's multiple sort of angles why personally I would feel that there are certain reasons why as a single person I would not want to go out and pursue something. For some reasons, if it's on the more risky side, you know, big decisions like home ownership, there is that fear of the unknown, that fear of I don't know how I'm going to be able to properly finance it. And it's a lot of responsibility right off the gate that I don't know if I'm necessarily ready for. But then also there is that aspect on the other side of things where it's activities that require maybe a little bit less responsibility and things that might be more day-to-day, like going out to dinner. And when I'm thinking about that, it kind of almost boils down to who am I choosing to share my time with?
That's a great question.
When you're married, oftentimes that question becomes a lot simpler because you have someone that you have made an oath to lovingly that you want to spend your time with. But when you're single, there's this tendency to feel like I don't necessarily have anyone to share this moment with, so I would probably be better spending my time doing something that it almost feels like I don't want to waste the value of that, which I guess lends itself to fear.
I really loved the question that you asked yourself of, I think it was something to the effect of, like, who am I choosing to spend my time with? Because time is so valuable. And just realizing how valuable it can be to spend time with your spouse, if you have one, to spend time with your friends, and to spend time with yourself. And being intentional in those times and not wasting them. Or sometimes it's like, oh, I'd love to go hang out and spend time with my friends, but right now my time should be spent doing something completely different. It's a very challenging but also like thought-provoking way to look at why you're doing or not doing something.
Yeah, and even taking this further into a more biblical perspective, there is that question of not only who am I choosing to spend my time with, but where am I feeling that I am called to perform ministry? When you're married, obviously you have an obligation to minister to your spouse, to your children. When you're single, that becomes a lot more of an open question because there aren't those factors that are necessarily set in stone. So when you don't have someone that you know for certain, oh, this is where I am needed because I have found the one and I am married to that person, it becomes almost this like analysis paralysis where it's like, I don't know if I'm in the right place right now or if God's supposed to have me be somewhere else right now. And so it's just a lot of this uncertainty.
I think sometimes too we tend to do that. Oh, I can't buy a house when I'm single because what happens when if I find someone and then they want to live somewhere else, or I can't do this ministry because we have to remember is those uncertainties will carry into marriage. Like marriage isn't this thing that solves all of these questions we have. I mean, you could still up and move. You could still need a different ministry. And so I think we just need to remember that because I feel like we put so much almost like pressure and expectation on marriage. And then really what happens is we're putting unfair expectations on that person to kind of solve our life a little bit. And we've kind of put our life on hold to be like, oh, it will all work out when that person comes and it will all be okay. And that's not really fair to that person. Also, I think the biggest error is that a future spouse isn't promised. So you might spend your whole life sitting in place for something that was never promised to you. And God's trying to get you to grow and do things. And you're just not doing it because you're like, yeah, totally. Once I'm married, I'll listen to you. Once I'm got XYZ set up, I'll listen to you. And I remember being taught that delayed obedience is still disobedience. And I think when we say, okay, I didn't get to travel to this random country because I wanted to do it with someone else. Okay, maybe that's smart. Maybe that's safe for a single female to wait. That's no big deal. It's kind of sad. No big deal. Waiting on something God has been calling you to do, that can be straight up sin. That can be saying, oh, God, I don't think you actually made me complete, and I don't think you're actually providing for what you're calling me to do. So I'm going to choose to sit around and wait for what I think will fulfill that before I'm going to move forward. It's kind of a dangerous place to put yourself.
And it's also dangerous, too, because then it lends itself to painting this perfect picture, at least this perfect picture in my human mind of like, oh, well, I'm going to wait and not be involved in this ministry that God is calling me to, which, like you said, Tately, is sin, because I'm going to wait and do it with my future spouse. Or I'm going to wait and be involved in the same ministry that my spouse is so that we can serve together. Serving with your spouse is a wonderful thing. But if I'm waiting and a year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years goes by, how have I stewarded that time that God has given me in a way that honors him, but also there's no guarantee that my future spouse is going to want to serve in the same ways that God has wired me to serve. You know, for me, trying to find where I fit in terms of Christian ministry, so to speak, has been a challenge because I'm not your typical, let me go serve in nursery. Let me teach kids. Let me go serve in the kitchen. I'm just not interested in those things. Like, they're beautiful, wonderful things, but I'm just not interested in them. So it is possible that if I get married someday, my future spouse might love to serve children, might love to teach Sunday school. And that's a good thing. It makes us both unique and both different, but that doesn't mean I'm going to be serving that same way. So if I'm delaying my obedience to serve with my spouse, there's no guarantee that I'm going to serve with my spouse then. What's going to change in me to obey God then, but not obey God now? And it's like, oh, well, if that's how I'm choosing to live, then that could create a lot of problems and dangers, not just in my obedience to God, but in my life in general. If I'm withholding myself from buying a house or going out to dinner, what other things in life am I missing out on? What personality am I developing? And just a lot of type questions.
I think one thing that stood out is what type of personality am I developing from making these choices? Like, would you say in that instance, by not choosing things that further either your relationship with God that you might want to wait on before marriage, or fostering within your community, those things, is that personality becoming a bit more jaded or cynical, or is that becoming more worrisome? Because it definitely looks different for different people because we are all unique.
Great question, and I can give you a real life example that I haven't shared yet, and it actually has to do with this podcast. So a couple of years ago, I was praying. I was like, Lord, how do you want me to serve? You know, I don't fit that typical mold. What areas do you want me to serve in? I found myself in a place where I wasn't serving. Like, I was working in ministry. That is my job. So in a way, I could say that I'm serving every day because when I come to work, I work in ministry. That's what I do. But outside of that, I wasn't serving. Like, I was kind of just being a bum and just doing the things that I enjoyed and finding different ways to fill my time and looking at it going, okay, God created me to do good works that he has prepared beforehand. What am I doing with my life that shows the fruit of those good works? So I prayed a very honest prayer that I thought I was ready for, of surrender, and said, okay, Lord, how have you wired me? What ministry do you want me involved in? Tell me what to do and I'll do it. And felt the tug to be involved in singles ministry. To which my reaction was, nope, I misheard you. Not going to happen. So I kept praying that and praying that. Okay, what area of singles ministry? Like, how do you start a ministry with singles? My church didn't have anything. Wasn't really sure what was going on locally as far as that goes. And I'm just like, God, you've given me this calling. Now what do I do to fulfill it? Please show me where and how and what. And then an idea to do a singles podcast came along, because initially that seems not as frightening because I'm behind a microphone. Like, I'm in a room with a group of people I know, or somebody is going to come on as a guest who I've done research on their work. I've really learned from it. Like, that's exciting and that's quote unquote comforting. But then also terrifying, because that puts me in the lead, and that puts me like, oh, like, I have to take the step of faith, and I have to walk into my boss's office and say, I think we should start a singles podcast. And by the way, I shouldn't lead it. So I walked into my boss's office and said, I think we should start a singles podcast. By the time I finished that conversation, I was going to be in charge of said singles podcast. So then the emotional side of it changed to excitement, but also growth. and seeing what the Lord has done in my life over the time that I have said yes and been working towards getting episodes out there for the world to hear. So the personal growth of my relationship with him, of just pouring out what I'm actually feeling, but then also leaning into the talents and the skills that he's enabled me with and using them to serve him. So Dylan, I think the answer is, at least for me, it's a little bit of everything. Like in each different phase, it has been a little bit different, but it's been an experience that when I started it, one of my biggest reasons for not wanting to do it was, oh, I'm going to be that singles person. I'm going to be that poster child for singles ministry. So no one's going to want to date me, or no one's going to want to be my spouse. Or what happens if I start it, we get a few episodes in, and then guess what? I meet somebody. And fast forward, who knows how long we're getting married. Now I'm leaving that ministry that God called me to, but that doesn't make any sense. So there's a lot, for me, there was a lot of different personal growth opportunities, public growth opportunities, ministry, not ministry, all wrapped in one experience.
And here's the thing, you were going through a period of time saying, I don't know where I fit in, I don't know where my ministry is. I think most everyone can relate to that, regardless of relationship status. But in that moment, you could have said, well, it's probably couples ministry, but I wouldn't know now, so I guess I'm just going to sit and wait for my life to change. And then this podcast wouldn't be here. But also look how much you've grown and how much you've learned to trust God. And I think there's been times where I've stepped out in faith and I've done something that's maybe not comfortable. I know for my thing was, for a while I was like, oh, well, I'm the only single person around, and I'm not anymore, but I used to be. And it's like, oh, I'm the only single person, so I can't have so-and-so over to dinner. That's a couple. That's weird. And I was feeling this call to increase my hospitality and to grow in that way, but I was resisting because I had this weird idea that I couldn't as a single person. And, well, I don't have anything to pour into someone. Well, I don't have anything to offer this ministry. And when you kind of ignore those lies and those doubts and you step out anyways, or you just allow your life to grow anyways, we're all going through the process of sanctification, which is beautiful. And then we get to look back and we get to think, wow, look how I've grown. Look how God has used me. And it's so fulfilling. It's exciting. And then you think, man, if I had sat around waiting for someone else to do that with, I would have missed out on all that. And if my life does change and someone walks into it, what a bad gift to give them, to say, hey, here's a half-developed me who sat so long she grew mold. Like, here you go. Like, no, I want to give them the best version of me, and I want to keep growing.
And who knows, maybe by increasing your hospitality skills and having game nights, having dinners, and all of those things that you are really good at, someone might invite their friend and they might walk into your life and you might meet your future spouse. All
and that's not why we do things, but it could happen.
This is true. It's not the motivating factor, but it could happen. Living life, meeting somebody sounds like a good thing to me.
Right, definitely. On the kind of inverse of that coin, I know that we're talking a lot about not wanting to wait to do things until you have a spouse. The other side of that being, I'm already doing so much right now, I just don't think that there is room for a spouse in my life at this point. Sometimes that's kind of how I feel like I'm at right now, just because being in the performing arts, there's so much going on, because we have this cycle that shows start development a year before they're put on stage, and trying to work into that. There's been so much focus on this job over the past months, I should say, that it's kind of been all work and not a whole lot of interpersonal connection outside of work, which this past weekend, we were talking a little bit earlier about how I went and took a bit of a risk, talked it over with, managers and whatnot, and they all said, go for it. I went out, I auditioned for a local community theater show, and I made it into the cast. And this is the first time that I'm doing community theater outside of family life. And I don't know if I necessarily would have had that opportunity if I weren't single. Leading into that, then again, I'm starting to wonder, now that I'm involved in this and work hasn't let up, there's so many other things that are still going on here, as well as in my free time. There's a question of where in the world would a spouse be able to fit in that? And I guess for me, talking about this now, it's kind of like, I don't have to figure that out. If God wants me to find a spouse, he will find the time for me to find a spouse. I don't have to find the time to do it. Now, if God is telling me, hey, you need to drop this in order to make time for your spouse, that's a completely different story. But that is all in line with following what God's calling is.
I think you bring up a really good point, Dylan, of finding balance, finding the balance of not looking too far into the future and what we want and what we hope for and, oh no, how's the spouse going to fit? My life is so busy. I'll never meet that person. Or, okay, if I do meet that person, then I'm going to have to give up X, Y, and Z. Finding that balance between looking into the future, finding that balance of living in the moment and living in the here and the now and choosing to enjoy and do the things that life is presenting us with. That is a wonderful opportunity to go audition for community theater and get a part and meet new people and be involved with something that's going to grow and challenge and excite you. But if you had said no to that because you were looking too far into the future and fearing too much, you'd miss out on that opportunity. But also, like, just finding that balance between living in the moment and not living in the future or fearing the future. Yes, there was that wisdom that comes in of choosing what's right for this season and this time of life. But I love how you shared that of choosing to live in the moment and trusting God with the moment and the future.
That's really what it boils down to. Because you also made a good point of a perk of being single is, don't wait to do all of your bucket list when you're married. Guess what? You won't have more time. You will not suddenly be able to do all those things. And so because you're living in that moment, you're able to do that. And yeah, goodness, I know how that feels working in events and being gone every weekend. Like, oh my gosh, what would I do if I wasn't single? And it's like, that doesn't matter. That doesn't apply right now. I'm going to live to what matters for me today. Because here's the thing too. God is bigger than a demographic checkbox. It doesn't matter what that checkbox is. It doesn't matter relationship status. God is bigger than that. So why are we letting that be our identity and be what controls our every decision? And we're going around saying, I can only do X, Y, Z because this is my demographic. And no, God's going to do what God's going to do. He's got it. We're okay. He has a plan. And we can only take it day by day and just trust him through the process. And like you said, maybe in the future he'll ask you to stop doing something. We don't know. We don't know what's going to be in the future. He does. So we'll let him worry about that and we'll just do today. Here's another point I have, actually, while we're on it. You know how something's so glaringly obvious and then you kind of realize it and to you it's a moment? But you kind of almost feel silly saying it because it's so obvious. It's kind of like when I realized being a fan was short for being fanatic about something. Like, oh, duh. This is what struck me as I was going through the material for today and just thinking about everything is when this world is gone, when we are done with this, how are we judged? We're not judged as a married person. We're not judged as a friend group or a ministry group or a Sunday school. We're judged as an individual. So live a full life obeying God as an individual, because that's how you're judged. And I feel like nothing else really should control our lives. We are judged as an individual, live a full life as an individual, and God's got the rest.
Very well said, yes. I'm so glad that you pointed that out because I'm now having that light bulb moment.
Yeah.
Like,
oh, good, not just me.
I should have noticed that earlier, but I didn't. But wow, that was good. Thanks for listening to episode 4 of Every Single Journey. If you liked what you've heard, click the subscribe button to be notified when future episodes are available. You can also share this podcast on your social media pages so others can be encouraged too. If you're looking for more faith-based content like this, be sure to check out Family Life's other original podcasts, including If That Makes Sense, Therese Talk, 10 Minutes With, and the Parable Podcast. Family Life is a listener-supported ministry. Your financial gifts make podcasts like this possible as we seek to share the hope we have in Jesus. You can find out more on our website at familylife.org.